Good afternoon and welcome to Miss Don's Justice. We're still celebrating Women's History Month, and today we'll be talking about women in aviation and women who are storytellers or were storytellers. So we have an exciting discussion for you today. We may not be here the whole time, but we want to get right into it. First, I'd like to announce something that's taking place next week here in the District of Columbia. On the 30th, we are celebrating Hope Fest. Hope Fest. It will be the third annual Hope Fest event, a celebration of multicultural communities, Asian, African American, or all around the African diaspora, and Hispanic and so many cultures coming together. Hope Fest was founded at the end of March 2021 in the wake of that horrible massacre in Atlanta, Georgia against Asian and Pacific Islander individuals. It was founded by Sharon Wise and Donata Edwards. We put on an event at Busboys and Poets along with members of the Mayor's Office of Asian and Pacific Island Affairs, and we put it together in less than 2 weeks. It was such a horrific act. And then we noticed the spread of anti-Asian feelings on the rise in America. And now look at what's happened. The anti-Asian aspect and anti-Semitic, it's anti-other. People are experiencing otherliness. And so we're coming together next Thursday on the 30th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Marshall Heights Community Development Center. Please check my Facebook page, get the details, and if you can come, please don't forget to RSVP. We have limited seating at that event. The theme is Hate Stops With Us. Hate stops with us. And when we talk about hatred, we have to do something about it. Unfortunately, a certain person who was in high office created an atmosphere of hate and otherliness. And that person is attempting to come back to high office. And we must do all we can to not let that happen. I don't even want to speak the name. It is so horrific. So you know what I'm talking about. Get your phones out and be on alert. If you live here in Washington, that person is attempting to gin up something very similar to the January 6th happenings, and we don't want a repeat of that. Security has gone up around the Capitol, and I think around the Supreme Court, and also in New York City, where things may happen at any time. Indictments may be announced. I don't know. But be on the alert. Use wisdom in your comings and goings. Okay? Well, today we're going to talk about women in aviation and women as storytellers. And we have talked about women who were in unusual occupations. I believe we had
non-traditional careers.
Non-traditional careers, exactly. And so when we think of that, there's one in particular that we thought about. We mentioned it last week to you, and that's aviation. Aviation. Now, think about it. How many times have you been on an airplane and you hear that voice come over the loudspeaker, good afternoon, good morning, whoever, and most of the time, it seems to me, it's a male voice.
I have never been on a commercial flight.
I have. And so when I heard the voice, you know me, I don't let my geography interfere with my reaction. I was so excited. I was clapping and saying yay, and then it was like contagious. And it wasn't just women clapping or whatever. Men did too. And I thought, well, some of these men are probably fathers of little girls, or they have sisters and so forth. And it was so wonderful. I think recently I saw on Facebook, and I believe I saw it on national news. In fact, I know I did, where they had an all-female crew during this month. This history. The pilot and the co-pilot, and attendants, all women. And during Black History Month, I saw a group that was all Black. So we're making some headway. But in your research, and Ms. Lynn does that wonderful research, she's really thorough. What did you find out about how we are present in aviation even now?
Statistically, in the United States, 29.3% of pilots are women, and 70.7% are men.
Okay, so
of course, statistics vary, from study to study.
But that in the general sense, it's 29.3%. Well, that troubles me because we're a little, just over 50% of the population. Would that be?
Exactly.
So you're a scientist and a mathematician. So we're not represented.
Underrepresented.
We're way underrepresented, okay, in the aviation field as pilots. So what do you think that's about? Why do you think we're underrepresented?
Part of it is the pay discrepancy. We're still underpaid. We earn about 94% of what men earn. 94%
in that field.
In that field.
And yet, okay, it's 94% of what they earn, but I guess what I would say is, of course, I want to be equal. Let me make that clear. But that's pretty high when we look at other fields where we get maybe 70% of what men earn. Okay, yeah, but what it shows is we're underrepresented and we still don't get paid like the other people. Within aviation, is there a certain kind of presence? I mean, is this commercial or is this just overall aviation where we're talking?
Well, I'm looking at commercial, not counting the military aviation. I'm looking more at commercial pilots, some of whom would fly privately.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned military because in terms of being flyers in the military, that came fairly late too.
They did.
Yeah, considering, and we're not even talking about combat flights. We're talking about maybe flights where people flew supplies and that kind of thing. Still, we were underrepresented in that as well.
It was felt that that was not a job for women.
Yeah, I don't get that because behind those controls, it's not like it was heavy lifting or something. And we certainly could do reading the maps and all of that. I don't see the
They
difference.
might have gotten dirty while they were greasing the parts, I guess. I don't really know.
Well, I think in a pinch, when it's really necessary, we rise to the occasion, always. But I was looking at these numbers in terms of representation, and you said 29.3% of pilots are women and 70.7% of pilots are men. And then this is 2021, which is pretty recent. And of those pilots, 84.6% are white.
Right.
Wow.
That would include males and females.
Males and females, right. And what I love about this, you have here unknown 5.2%. I love it, I love it, I love it. That means
I'm not confessing it, and you can't tell from looking at me.
I love it, and don't I know about those things? Okay. Then it says Hispanic or Latino, 5.2%, and Asian, 2.5%, Black, 2.2%, Indigenous, meaning Native Americans, Yeah, or Alaska Native, 0.3%. They're not even 1%. Wow. Okay, the original owners of the land are only 0.3% pilots. Okay. Now, what fascinated numbers? I'm not surprised. I'm disgusted with the breakdown, 84.6% white, because let's face it, in about, 10 years, we'll be a brown nation. Okay, so in 10 years, you've heard the concept browning of America. We're going to be a brown nation. I believe we're already there. If they're confessing that that's going to happen in 10 years, it's really already here. It's just that our living patterns don't reflect that. Yeah. If we really looked closely, we're probably already there. But what's interesting is I'm looking at the Hispanic or Latino number being 5.2%, over and above the Asian 2.5 and Black 2.2. So at the bottom is Black. And when we look at statistical numbers for the population, we're at least somewhere between 12 and 15% of the population, and we're only 2.2% of pilots. Now, I know we talked about, I think a week or so ago, the cost of becoming a pilot. And in your research, did you come across anything about the cost of becoming a pilot?
No, I didn't really look into that.
It did. I didn't want to jump out there, but it's quite costly. And so now there are some special programs. And folks, please look into this. There's a shortage on pilots right now. Okay, there is a shortage. So let's do something about these numbers. Okay. And now there are some special programs in aviation for women, minorities of all kinds. And we need to address it and get into those programs, okay? Some, I believe, are going through certain universities and like that. I think some of the commercial entities are trying to undergird that. It's a joint effort. Typically, one of the paths to becoming a commercial pilot was former military pilots. Right. Okay, so that helped with some of that expense. But now there are special classes to help people become commercial pilots. Go through your various states. They will help you. And there are programs for people to get into becoming commercial pilots.
The Red-tailed Hawks is an organization that mentors young children at a certain age and helps them learn about the Tuskegee Airmen and get them interested in aviation.
Red-tails.
See if there's a group or in your area.
That's right. And they don't discriminate.
No,
they do not discriminate. I mean, yes, it comes out of that tradition, but they're open to helping anyone. Right. That's just the way our history is usually. we welcome everybody. Okay, so that's a great resource. The Red-tails, what is it again, Ms. Gwynn?
Red-tailed Hawks.
Red-tailed Hawks. Okay, and they're there to increase the numbers or get young people interested in aviation. Okay, because typically that's something we haven't even expressed. We may be interested, but how do we go about it?
Exactly.
And look, if you want to do it, don't let anything stop you. And that's kind of where we are with two ladies in particular who made history in aviation. Everybody's heard about Amelia. You've seen the movie. All that, Amelia Earhart, and the other lady is Bessie Coleman. Tell us a little bit about that. Take your time.
Who's first?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So Amelia Earhart was the 11th woman or 16th woman to be licensed as a pilot in the United States. She gained her fame by flying solo across the Atlantic Ocean. She was from affluent circumstances. Um, she broke records, woman's altitude records. So she was always in the news, always in the press. Bessie Coleman, who was several years younger than she was the first African American and first Native American to earn a pilot's license. Bessie Coleman had to leave the country. She had to go to France in order to become a pilot because she was not admitted into the United States schools to train as a pilot. So Robert Abbott, who was an African American newspaper publisher of the Chicago Defender, suggested that she go to France, and she did. She studied French and learned French so she could take the exams, and became licensed. She had a different challenges. Her dad was Native American and African American. Her mother was a former slave. She had to fight to get what she wanted. Amelia Earhart, as brave as she was and as notable and as she was, she didn't have that kind of a struggle. And she always had, cameras and people doing things for her. She didn't have the financial impediments that Bessie Coleman had.
Yeah.
They called Amelia Earhart Lady Lindy, and
Yeah.
they called Bessie Coleman Brave Bessie or Queen Bess.
Right. And the reference for Amelia Earhart with Lindy was Lindbergh, the
yeah.
connection or comparison. So see, she was even compared to
exalted.
Yeah, compared to a real aviation hero.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, she had a federal judge in her background. Somebody in her family was a federal judge, and also an attorney, and another relative was a banker. So she did not, even though she was from the Midwest, I think it was it Kansas, she was well-to-do. So paying for flying lessons and all of that was not a struggle. Right. Okay. Now, we don't begrudge anybody. Nobody can help their circumstances of their birth, right. But there is a difference, folks. And Bessie Coleman had to do some menial jobs to save up money to go to France, okay, and just to live, really, because I think in her background there was sharecropping and so forth. Yeah,
was a sharecropper.
Sharecropper, and we know what that means. Okay, so. She struggled, and then she had to learn another language. How great was that? I mean, see, so
she did it.
Yeah, she did it. Yeah, she did it, and she didn't make up excuses. She said, "Okay, I'm going to do that." Mm-hmm. She got that license, and what's beautiful is, I think I read this correctly, when she got that license, that international pilot's license, okay, international pilot's license, then did she get waved in over here?
Oh, no.
See, how did that go?
You're going to have to speak to that, but she wanted to start a school.
She wanted to
start a school to train African-American pilots.
Yeah, that was her dream, not just to be the only one. Sometimes when we get into positions, we want to be the only one. We're the first one, then we want to be the only one. No, she wanted to start a school. That was her big dream. And I look at what Amelia Earhart did in terms of wanting to be the first to do the transatlantic flight. She was good. She didn't end up exactly where she was supposed to be sometimes, but she did end up on the other side. Okay. Bessie Coleman's flying took on a more entertainment kind of.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah. Barnstorming or stunt flying.
Stunts, yeah.
And, pretty dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
But that's how she had to fly because she wasn't welcome to get a job or anything like that with, other than being a performer.
right, right. I did notice in the Earhart bioflick, she did create a couple of venues for all female
Okay.
pilots, and that kind of thing. But Bessie Coleman was out there with the guys, okay, and doing that stunt flying. And it's interesting, they were only 5 years apart in age. And one had to really struggle to become a pilot. But they both ended, or it's believed they both ended tragic. We know that Bessie Coleman died in a crash. With Amelia Earhart, there was some mystery. Is that right?
Right. Her plane basically disappeared. So it's assumed by most rational people that it crashed. But she was not declared dead until 2 years later. And since that time, there have been all kinds of theories and conspiracy theories. And
she ran off with a lover. And
Elvis is still alive.
Right.
Things surrounding her.
Did they have any idea about where she may have crashed? Or
somewhere in the Pacific.
Okay.
Yeah, she was trying to fly around the world. And didn't quite make it.
Did they ever find any part of the wreckage?
Well, they are always claiming to have found part of the wreckage.
That's what I thought.
But who really knows?
Yeah. So we just figured by now she's probably gone anyway because of when she was
her age
born and the age alone. Yeah. But we don't know. And then I think some people around that area in the Pacific said she was here,
she married somebody, a spy, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Okay, now you know what I love? Bessie Coleman, known as Brave Bessie because of the stunt flying and whatever. She had a quote.
Oh yes.
What's that quote? Now, folks, this is really a great quote. I don't want you to forget this about Miss Bessie Coleman. What was that quote?
The air is the only place free from prejudices. I knew the race needed to be represented along this most important line, so I thought it my duty to risk my life to learn aviation.
Wow. And the word race
was capitalized.
Yeah. The air is the only place free from prejudices. Wow. I guess she said when you get up there,
everybody's alike.
Yeah. So she struggled, but she became what she wanted to be. Now, the tragedy in the end for her was she was in an apparatus that may not have been up to par.
Right. It was said something that a wrench may have been left.
Yeah. In
the engine or something. And it caused the plane to.
In fact, they determined that. The co-pilot was dead on impact. She was thrown from the plane. She didn't. They surmised she didn't have her seatbelt on. Okay. So they ended, but. You see, most people know about Amelia Earhart, but most people do not know about Bessie Coleman. So, folks, we're just giving you enough so you can go tell somebody and go look it up and find out about her rich background, because Bessie Coleman was the first African-American woman and the first Native woman to get her license here. To be able to fly here, pursuant to a license here in America. All right. Were there any other women who made a difference?
Harriet Quimby, who was the first American pilot.
Wow.
That was in 1911. Then you have the French woman, Raymonde de la Roche, the first woman in the world to receive a pilot's license.
Okay, so that was a French person who did that. Okay. I wonder if that's why that gentleman referred Coleman to France.
It might have been.
He knew
that she would be accepted as a woman.
As a woman.
Yeah. And of course,
Wow.
You know, being a Black woman back then wouldn't have made a whole lot of difference in France.
No, because we know for a fact entertainers were
Yeah.
accepted there, and other
Absolutely.
artists.
And that's why they would go to
and
Europe
that's
to perform, because they weren't accepted here.
and that was one of the main places they went to France. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
Okay, this lady's really interesting. Tiny Broadwick.
Mm-hmm.
She was the first woman to parachute from an airplane, and she became the first person to demonstrate parachutes to the U.S. Army.
Did you get that, folks? She was the first woman to demonstrate. You know, I love this kind of thing. You know, I'm sorry, you know, I get excited to demonstrate parachutes to the what? U.S. Army. Uh-huh. Go Tiny. I like the name too. Tiny Broadway. She's probably 6 feet tall. No, let me stop. But Tiny, I'm wondering if that was a facetious nickname. Yeah, 1915. Wow. Okay. So, okay, I'm feeling pretty good now, Miss Quinn. Go ahead.
This will make you feel even better.
Okay.
Catherine Stinson was the first woman to fly the mail and the first woman in the world to own a flying school.
Uh-oh. You know what? Is your mail slow? Maybe we'd better get some more.
Catherine is no longer on the job.
Okay. We better get some more like her. Okay, because snail mail is really just that, snail. Okay. So the first woman to fly the mail and the first woman in the world to own a flying school. Wow. I feel really great. I'm getting in the spirit.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Let me help you some more.
Yeah.
We have another Catherine.
Uh-oh.
Catherine Chung in 1932 became the first Asian woman to get her pilot's license.
You know what's so wonderful about that, Gwen? 1932. What was going on here in America? The Depression, the Great Depression.
Right.
Isn't that,
Yeah,
you know,
interesting.
A way out of no way? You know, I mean, just think that it could, even if she wasn't here, anywhere in the world, because things were kind of bad all around the globe. Yeah. The first Asian woman to get her pilot's certification, 1932. My mother was 1 year old. Okay. And I see something else here.
We have Bernice B. Haydu, first woman to fly military planes for the Army. And she wasn't just stuck on being somebody herself. The women, the WASP, they called them, the veterans, the female veterans were not recognized by the federal government. And she appealed in 1977 to Jimmy Carter, and he signed the bill into law, allowing the women veterans to access Veterans Administration benefits.
Wow. Jimmy Carter. 1977. I mean, that's so recent. He's still alive, you know. So what I love about this, and by the way, folks, this is not white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. This is a different WASP. Okay, this is Women's Army. No, I'm just saying, no acronyms. You know, are so
I understand.
So off. You know, that's not what we're talking about. Okay, yeah. So this has to do with Women's Army. Okay, so I am really proud of her. And she stuck to her guns, she and those other women. And well, let's face it, now in retrospect, we understand just how progressive President Carter was about many things. Yeah, it isn't sad that people sometimes, I mean, he's nearing the end now. And now we're realizing just how much he really did that one term in office. Yeah. Okay. You have a few more here.
We have Gina Yeager,
Yeah.
Co-piloted the first nonstop, non-refueled flight around the world. That was in 1986.
You know what makes me happy about her name? She has a name similar to Chuck Yeager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you know, he's from West Virginia. You know, I had to throw that in there.
I know it was
Broke the sound barrier, you know what I'm saying? But look at what she co-piloted first nonstop, non-refueled flight around the world. And when did it happen?
In 1986.
Wow. 1986. Goodness. I had been in practice for over a decade. I mean, this is so recent, you know. I mean, it just, I get excited about it, but I have mixed feelings. You know why?
Why?
Because I feel it should have happened way before.
Everything happens in its time, I think.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about the struggle, and there were people who were ready for it to happen way before. You're right, you know, everything in its own time, but knowing that there were people out there capable to do, but the only reason they couldn't do it is because of being a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And Lord, if you were a woman of color, even more so a problem. Yeah. Okay. That was quite an accomplishment to flight around the world. Okay. And then I see Matisse. Who is this now?
Matisse Wright was her name when she made this achievement. But she's Matisse Wright Springer now.
Mm-hmm.
First African-American woman to be a flight officer in the U.S. Navy. And she achieved that in 1993.
1993. Wow. So that was only, what, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
20, was it 30? 30 years ago, I guess, you know.
1993 was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
that's sobering thought right
there. Yeah. I mean, just, not good. Not good. Yeah. I mean, I'm proud of her, but just think 1993. I was already a middle-aged woman then. I'm just trying to put it in perspective for myself. You know, I can't speak to anybody else. Okay, she's an African-American, you know, so she must have been really on the ball.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And the famed, what is this now?
The Blue Angels.
Okay.
You know how they fly in the air shows?
Yeah.
Pensacola Beach. Navy Lieutenant Amanda Lee was named as a pilot. She's going to be flying the plane, the FA-18, as a demo pilot with the Blue Angels in the 2023 season.
This year.
Right. She, with three other women were on the team. One is a flight surgeon, the other is a public affairs officer, and the third woman is an event coordinator. But she's going to be a pilot.
Oh, wow. So 2023.
Yeah.
And how many times have I looked at that Blue Angels? What would you call that? It's entertainment. Yes, an air show. Yeah, so it is entertainment. And it's been dangerous because people have, not made it, you know. So they've completed this training last year, ready to go this year. Oh, wow. So aviation for women, really, just since the 1900s. Wow. Okay. And so on board, three other women currently on the team serving as flight surgeon, public affairs officer, and event coordinator. Well, that certainly is impressive. I'm still concerned about us being represented properly in the world of aviation. I know that recently we have had a great emphasis on getting women into not only just aviation in the commercial sense, but also in the space program, which is akin to aviation. And I'm thinking of Mae Jemison, and I'm thinking about the women who have been in flight. I think one lady was unfortunately killed.
Krista McCullough
Krista
was a
McCullough.
teacher that went
Yeah.
on the Challenger
Yeah,
spacecraft.
remember that? Oh, that was a sad day. And I remember all the school kids being so upset. It was a very sad day.
Yeah.
It was a very sad day. And that was like the first time a teacher or a non-traditional astronaut
been on
was.
board.
Yeah. I loved that. I loved it. So aviation, young ladies, if you want to be a pilot, don't let anything stop you. Think about Amelia Earhart and think about Miss Bessie Coleman, who had to not just learn to fly, she had to learn another language in order to pass a test to get a license. And she had to leave America to go to France to get an international pilot's license. So if you sit there and you're starting to think about excuses, stop right there. Okay? Where there's a will, there is a way. And there are some programs we told you about. Ms. Gwen told you about the red-tailed hawk. Yeah, the red-tailed hawks. I'm sorry. And so we need to jump right on that. Okay. One of the themes of this Women's History Month is the art of storytelling, or people telling stories. I mean, I believe that's the world theme all around the world. It's not just here in America, it's International Women's History Month. Okay. So, and stories are told many different ways. Okay. We have oral tradition, we have writing. Then there's a way of telling a story in the other media, television, and what we're doing here now, podcast, radio, movies, and just a number of ways to tell stories. And I'm thinking about just in culture in general, the role of women telling stories. I mean, can you think of we're mothers, we're caretakers, and so forth. And storytelling just seems to be something that we do. Is that?
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We talk to our children,
Mm-hmm.
tell them stories,
Mm-hmm.
pass down stories that have been passed down to us. We sing songs that have been passed down to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the type of storytelling, because we went over that a little bit in our music segment during Black History, the soundtrack of our lives, with respect to women in this storytelling role. Where should we start? Maybe with the written?
Sure.
Okay. So, I was thinking, who were the outstanding writers? Not just here, but everywhere. But I was thinking of here. So when in your research, what did you come across?
First thing not the first thing I looked at, but one of the things I looked at was the fact that in the 19th century,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't necessarily considered ladylike for women to write certain things, especially things that were critical of society, things that were graphic. So they assumed names.
Wow. Okay.
We have A.M. Barnard, who's actually Louisa May Alcott, the author of Little Women and Little Men,
Mm-hmm.
books that we, were assigned to read in high school.
Mm-hmm.
We have Charlotte, Emily, and Anne Bronte,
Mm-hmm.
who were listed as Currer, Ellis, and Eaton Bett. That was their pseudonym.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Not just here, we have Amantine Lucille Aurora Dupin, who was one of France's most prolific writers. And she used the name George Sand.
Right.
Then somebody said of her, what a brave man she was and what a good woman. Because eventually, folks were outed Mary Ellen Evans wrote Middlemarch under the name George Eliot.
That's right. Yeah.
So I have the whole list of names here of people who had to write under other people's names. One of the ones that was a Danish woman, Karen Blixen. She became Isak Dinesen. Catherine Burdekin, Murray Constantine, Alice Bradley Sheldon was James Tripp P. Jr. It wasn't even anything near her name. And then at some point she dropped Alice and became Bradley Shelton. We have June Tarpe Mills, who dropped her first name and wrote as Tarpe Mills. She reminded me of Joanne Rowling, who we know as J.K. Rowling, who publishes under that name because her publisher said that if she wrote Harry Potter to a target audience of young boys, they wouldn't receive it well if they knew she was a woman. And so she became J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, that was so brilliant for these women to understand how to get ahead in the 19th century, and it continued into
up until today.
And it was so brilliant because remember now when Harry Potter first came out, I don't recall seeing her do on-air interviews right away. Do you?
People had to be outed at some point.
Right.
They had to come out from behind the cover.
So she was J.K. And
she also published under the name Robert Galbraith.
Oh, wow.
So
well,
some people were angry when they found out who she really was.
Yeah, I can just imagine a lot of men were angry because let's face it, folks, Harry Potter is a huge, what would you call
institution.
That? Yeah. And when
enterprise,
it's an enterprise. Yeah. The franchise, there's a whole franchise of Harry Potter, right? I mean, how many movies have there been, and then the what do you call those products? The merch. Yeah, the merch. Yeah. So she wrote the books, which became movies. And so when books then become movies, that's a different pot of gold, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think they may have done, or maybe they're doing now, some theater around that. See, yeah. So a number of things that have gone from books to movies, people milk it for all it's worth. Okay. And I'm not mad at them.
Yeah, I would too.
Oh, I would too. Yeah. But look at this. And see, Gwen, I had forgotten about some of this because I remembered reading the Bronte sisters books. What was it, Wuthering Heights, and what was
the most famous
one? And Jane Eyre.
Jane Eyre.
Right. And so, and they were in a particular time frame. So that's all I really remember about the Bronte sisters. They wrote some books that were required reading in most public schools across the nation. Okay. Yeah. And the lady, what was her name? Daphne du Maurier, Rebecca. And was it Jamaican Inn? I think it was Jamaican Inn. So it's interesting that a lot of the literature, and I think we were talking about this.
Pearl Buck, we were talking about.
Yeah, Pearl Buck. She's from West Virginia.
Yeah.
Folks, she's from West Virginia. I know I'm shameless about it. I really don't care. Okay. She was, okay. But Pearl Buck wrote The Good Earth. Now, it probably would be banned. What do you think?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I was thinking about that. Yeah.
I was thinking.
Yeah. Folks, they may not even require it in these days, but back in the day when Miss Thon went to school, you better believe all the West Virginia schools had The Good Earth on the reading list. Okay. Her parents were missionaries in China. They were from the Southern Presbyterian Church. And so she spent some formative years there. And that book contains a very graphic passage. Well, some graphic passages, but the one that most of us think about is when this woman, I can't think of the lady's name now, she worked in the rice paddies, and she was very pregnant. And I suppose her water broke or whatever. You know, she knew she was in labor. She went into the house, or went into somewhere, delivered her own baby, and then went right back to the rice paddies to work that same day. Okay. I mean, and it was very detailed description of that whole thing. And when you think about the time when that was written, and then I think about the time where I read it in school in West Virginia, which is the only state totally within Appalachia. But we were going to read Homegirl's book. There's no doubt about it. And we were going to read her book now. And when I think about that, and I remember our teachers being very good about explaining it, because we were stunned by it. That was pretty graphic for, you know, that time. And I'm thinking, okay, is this why? And I said this to you in the car on the way over. Some insurance companies want to put women out of the hospital so soon because they may have read that book and said, well, you know what? They can go back. That woman went back to work. She didn't just go home and, you know, take care of her baby in a day. She went right back out there in the rice paddies to work. So because we have this big ban on books now, what's acceptable and what's not, I immediately thought, that book might be something that would be banned because of the graphic nature of it. Mm-hmm. Don't know. Maybe it is banned some places. I don't know. Some states are banning books so much. I'm wondering if there's anything left to read, you know, and the rationale for banning the books is just so off. But I was looking at that and looking at this list. Certainly Little Men and Little Women were required reading. And then I looked at some of the other women who were some of the well-known authors in our literature. You know, like you said, you had Louisa May Alcott, you had the Bronte sisters, Dickinson, Emily Dickinson, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and no, she wasn't just Mrs. Robert Browning. Okay, she was somebody in her own right. Okay. Can you think of some others during that time?
I can think of a ton of others during that time.
Yeah.
It'd be like, you know, who would say, I've just...
Well, give us some of them. You know, yeah.
Well, during any time?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can look at people who wrote cookbooks like Julia Childs.
Yeah.
The Martha Stewart.
Yeah, that's present time.
They took what they knew
and took it to another.
And
took it to another level.
It wound up being in television, so people all around the world could see it.
Could see it, yeah.
So it started with a book again, and then went to another medium.
And they did well. I mean, especially Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart did something similar to Rowling. Okay. She has pots and pans. I mean, she has merch, and and her stuff really is good, folks. I mean, she didn't ask me to help her. You know, I don't know her. You know, but it really is high quality stuff. You know, and so I'm really happy that we have a wide spectrum of people in storytelling. I'm thinking of now, I don't know how you want to approach, you know, these other people that you researched, but when we do our storytelling can reach us and help us in different areas. Did you notice that?
Right.
Okay.
I looked at how they can inspire, motivate, incite people, educate, inform, entertain, and all these things can be in one book. It may not be just an inspirational book, but it might be also educating you, telling you something.
Right. Right.
So a lot of folks can't be pigeonholed.
Right. Right.
Because they do a lot with their writing.
Yeah, because to inspire and motivate often comes out of some pain.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, or some experience in one's life. Okay. So who are some of the storytellers? You know, we can't tell it all.
Okay,
you know?
I'm thinking right now of this lady first on my page, Dr. Kismikia Corbett. And we know her because she was the immunologist that we saw on television all the time during the COVID crisis. And she had the opportunity as a young person to work with a renowned organic chemist in a lab. And her statement was what she learned mostly is that being him was possible.
Wow, say that again. That's profound.
Being him was possible.
And she was referring to the mentor.
The renowned chemist.
So she saw what a man did.
And knew that she could do it too.
See, yeah. So then she was able to tell her story to others.
Right.
And I remember she was one of the communicators during the COVID. We still have COVID, but you know,
during
at the height of it. Yeah.
And she was able to explain things in a way that people could understand what she was saying.
Yeah, and she came to be one of those regular people, almost like the governor of New York was. That we if we saw her today, we might not even recognize the name, but if you saw the face, you would say, "There's the COVID lady." Yeah. So then her role was to teach, educate, and to motivate us to do inspire us to do what was right during that period. Because remember, we had a lot of people giving false information, and she had to overcome that and get the story over in a way that would be believable, acceptable. And you know what I'm thinking right now? I'm wondering, because she was a woman, when she was standing there giving that information, I'm wondering how many people were saying, okay, she's a woman. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Because it still happens. I can tell some people something, and until they hear a man say it,
you can say the same thing.
Not even change the comma. Yeah. So, okay. So we know it's inspirational and motivational. What other things do storytellers get over to us?
Okay, I'm thinking about Amanda Gorman.
Oh, I love her.
Was the youngest inaugural poet in history. She read her poem, "The Hill We Climb," when Joe Biden was inaugurated. President Joe Biden was inaugurated in 2021. And the country at that time needed healing. And that's what her aim was, to provide healing and vision through her writing.
And I remember that day, so many people had masks on, right? Because this was in the height of COVID. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And she stood there proud. I mean, she's from New York. And she was very young. I can't remember just how young she was at the time, but very young and very poised and confident. And what was so interesting, I thought back to the time when Maya Angelou did the poem at the inaugural. And it was, and still I rise, And then this young lady came as a young person and did this. Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt. Okay, I was getting, and proud, because we have a unique way of telling stories as women, with deep emotion
Mm.
and thought and compassion. I mean, so many things come through in a way that, don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against Carl Sandburg and all those other folks who did the poems on the but I'm just saying that we have a unique perspective. And I think that perspective, the way Maya Angelou did it and this young lady did it, had a lot to do with, yeah, I'm sure being Black was one element, but being a woman in particular, I thought of that at both of those events. Yeah. But go ahead and tell me some more about her, because she has quite a background.
Yeah, that's I thought I would share some of the words from her.
Take your time. Okay, I hope I have some tissue. Okay.
You don't need tissue.
Okay. All right.
She wrote, "We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be. A country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than one we were left. With every breath from my bronze pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation. In every corner called our country, our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge, battered and beautiful."
Well, that's powerful. That's powerful. And her theme with that was healing. And it was so appropriate because we were coming out of such a horrific time. The divisiveness of the previous administration and all that had taken place, just so ugly, And her words they were like a balm, like a medicine, and so appropriate. And I remembered her delivery. I was just caught up in it, and I was feeling a sense of hope. And I hadn't felt that in the immediate weeks prior. It was a terrible time. I've lived in the nation's capital since 1968, with the exception of brief, time. And I remembered saying to someone, I had not felt the fear, some depression, just distraught like I had when the previous administration was in. I had not felt anything like that. I came here in 1968, June, to go to college, and the riots had just taken place. Yeah, I could still smell the embers. It was the burn. It was still around. The destruction was still there on the ground.
They let you come.
Yeah, well, Miss Don's going to make a way. And we're pretty determined. Mountain Mamas. Yeah, we're tough. We're scrappers, and so I don't think my parents were fearful about me coming. And I wasn't fearful, but when I got here and I could smell the burn, well, you remember you were here. So I didn't feel the fear then that I felt just before President Biden took office. I had not felt fear before. And that was sad for me. That was very sad. So I really needed to hear a storyteller with healing words. Yeah. And then I think sometimes words are therapeutic. Is that right? And do you have some examples of therapeutic words?
Okay, Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She says there's never a single story. And she wrote a book based on something that she experienced. And by her saying there's never a single story, everybody has a voice and everybody has a different story. And it's good to share your story because no one else has your story.
Right.
And this is what she shared from her book, Notes on Grief.
Grief. Okay.
Grief is a cruel kind of education. You learn how ungentle mourning can be, how full of anger. You learn how glib condolences can feel. You learn how much grief is about language, the failure of language, and the grasping for language. Why are my sides so sore and achy? It's from crying, I'm told. I did not know that we cry with our muscles.
Wow.
Now, anybody who has been through grief can feel this, not just read it, but can feel it.
Yeah. When you were reading it, I thought about, a number of things. And she says, grief is a cruel kind of education. And then her next, you learn how ungentle mourning, mourning, can be, how full of anger. You learn how glib condolences can feel. And you know what I was thinking about? The stages of grief. Now, people have written about those stages of grief, and thank God, that it has happened. Storytellers and people working in this. So what she's saying in just this little paragraph made me think of those stages and how, okay, there's a period of sadness and there is a period of anger, and it's okay to be angry, and there's a period when just words, for instance, they don't mean it. And look at how we say our thoughts and prayers are with you after every mass shooting. It's just like a stamp. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. It becomes somewhat meaningless, and it's glib. This is the right word, glib. And the failure of language and the grasping for language.
There are no words.
There are no words.
When tragedy happens, whether it's natural or somebody getting shot or murdered or whatever happens, where do you find words to even express?
Right.
If you don't want to say, my thoughts and prayers are with you, because you realize that they have taken on, no meaning whatsoever.
Right.
What do you say?
Well, I've done a little research into that and said, and then what they encourage is sometimes just being in the room with someone without saying anything is so meaningful to a person who's going through something, because the air should not be filled with words sometimes. Just being there, the presence of someone can be so supportive. So when I read that Gwen, that was so powerful. I'm glad you picked that. I saw it, when I was looking through my little research, and she's an incredible writer, and she's experienced quite a bit in her own personal background. So she's not talking about something she read in a book.
Right.
Okay. I say that a lot, And then when people say, I know what you feel. No, you don't. No, you don't.
My experience may have been similar, but it was not yours.
It was not yours. Yeah. And I think so we have to be so careful with words, in other people's losses. I've never had children. So if someone loses a child, I have no idea what that's like. None. And even if I did have children, and even if I lost one, it's still not the same,
right.
And then I was thinking about, when we talked about Amelia Earhart, think of people who have had loss and they couldn't even find the person.
Right. That's got to be just
Yeah, that's
heartbreaking.
just,
No,
yeah,
no finality at all.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you figure, okay, they probably did die, but then there's no, and I don't like the word closure
Mm. It doesn't really
because it
exist.
doesn't really exist, you know. But people say it, you know, and that's what
Every
she's talking about.
holiday,
You know,
every
yeah,
special day. I mean,
their
there's no closure.
birthday,
Yeah.
you know, anniversaries. I mean, yeah.
Just
So
walking, down the street and you see something and you get that memory.
yeah, and that's what she's saying here in her words, notes on grief, folks. Her book, Notes on Grief.
Adichie.
Yeah,
Adichie.
IE. Yeah, yeah,
Look her up on Amazon. She's
yeah.
got lots of books
She
out there.
has. Yeah, she's very
Yeah.
prolific. Yeah, yeah. And what else? Who else?
Okay, I got Doris McMillan.
Uh-oh.
She was a former TV anchor, motivational speaker, devout Christian, and communications professional.
Mhm.
And she wrote a book many years ago called Mixed Blessing.
Mhm.
And it told the story of her reunion in 1981 with her biological mother, who gave her up for adoption because, in her words, it wasn't in the best interest of a white German to have a brown baby. She had a black adoptive family. It was stormy. She expressed that it affected her emotional development and that she used to entertain all kinds of fantasies about her natural mother.
Mhm.
And in spite of all the success that she achieved and is still achieving in her career, um, she wanted to find that mother and she found her. And I'm not going to tell you the ending
Mhm.
of the book because it would be good if you'd read it, called Mixed Blessing by Doris McMillan.
Right.
But the kind of writing in that book, if you've experienced yourself, then you empathize. If you haven't experienced it, then you sympathize.
Mhm.
And writing can do that. It can elicit sympathy or empathy.
Mhm. And we both know Doris. You know her very well in a personal way, and you've worked with her in ministries and so forth. And I have worked with her through her communications company in political work and that kind of thing. And she's an incredible professional person, a real wordsmith, and she can just get it together just like that. I mean, words. Doris is great, and she has a great team with the Macmillan group. Macmillan Communications, yeah. And she has on that staff print journalists. I've worked with one of them, and that's Charlotte Roy, who's in Atlanta. And Charlotte is a great wordsmith, communicator, storyteller. Press releases, you know, whatever you need, Charlotte can put it together. And then Doris has a great graphics team to help get the story out. They do television work and so forth. And she was an anchor here.
Right.
And she was on CNN, I think, too.
And she was also an actress. You see her in several
yes,
movies if you look her up.
I
on
refer to
IMDb.
her as a movie star. She gets tickled about that. You know, I said, Doris, you're also, don't forget to say you're a movie star. You know?
Don't forget the script spelling bee.
Yeah, and the script spelling bee.
Moderator for that.
Yeah, she was moderator for that. So she's done many things in the world of communications and storytelling. She was a very effective reporter, and she still does, you know, commercials and just she can do any of that. Okay, she's just really good at her work, and the team she has around her, she can give you any aspect of communications you want, written, electronic. She's just very, very good. She does coaching in that as well. So Doris McMillan at McMillan Communications, and Doris. With that book you're talking about, Mixed Blessings, and you're talking about something going into another genre. There was a PBS documentary, and her story was one of the stories, and it was called Brown Babies. Okay, I believe you can pull that up. If you go to PBS, I believe you can pull that up. It's called Brown Babies, and her mother was German, and her father obviously was an African American man, and her adoptive family was, had its challenges. And despite that, she became very successful, and she's still successful and very grounded in her faith. Her faith plays a big part in her communications work. But she's all business, and I love it because she delivers the goods, I'm telling you. So, yeah, I was, looking at this. You had it under empathy and sympathy, and that is true. That is true.
I keep telling myself when I was reading the book, I had to keep saying, "Oh,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
she made it.
She made it. She made it. Yeah, yeah." And see, so much happened when she was little that was very challenging. I don't want to give it away. I'd like for people to read the book. But as a little girl, she experienced some very challenging situations. Yeah, yeah. And then sometimes we have people whose communications, their writings provoke thought.
Controversial.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
You may not agree with the person. You may really not agree with the person, but what the person writes does prompt you to think.
Provocative thought.
Right.
Okay. And give me some examples.
I'm going to give you a quote from Dr. Nikki Giovanni.
Yes, indeed. Okay. My girl.
This is from her book, Racism 101.
Uh-oh.
The fact that slavery is no more our fault than I'm going to start over again. The fact of slavery is no more our fault than the fact of rape. People are raped. It is not their choice. How the victim becomes responsible for the behavior of the victimizer is well beyond my understanding. How the poor are responsible for their condition is equally baffling. No one chooses to live in the streets. No one chooses to go to sleep at night hungry. No one chooses to be cold, to watch their children have unmet needs. No one chooses misery, and our efforts to make this a choice will be the damnation of our souls.
Wow. Ooh, that's Nikki. That's Nikki Giovanni. Dr. Professor Giovanni. When I was in college, she was very, very controversial. And most people knew about her poetry. And folks of a certain age, you'll remember Ego Tripping. Ego Tripping, okay? Look that poem up. That's a masterful poem. I mean, just, yeah. You're talking about provoking thought. Okay, yeah. And this quote here is very powerful. I'm glad you chose this. She has been doing lectures around the country recently, and she was here not too long ago. And of course, with Zoom, she's been all around, and she still can bring it. She can still bring it. She's been in a number of universities, prestigious universities all across the country. She still takes time to visit and lecture in historically Black colleges. And she spent a good number of years in those settings. I believe she spent a lot of time at Howard University. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So she provokes thought, and that's a function of good literature. It should provoke thought, and communication and storytelling should not just make us feel good and live happily ever after. Right. That's a fairy tale.
Life is not
like that. No, it is not. It is not. It is not. I see you have here somebody who is educator and informer.
Mm-hmm.
And
That would be DC native and Howard University graduate,
uh-oh.
Dr. Isabel Wilkerson,
Yeah.
the first Black woman to receive the Pulitzer Prize in journalism.
Wow. Howard graduate.
Yes.
You can go on and brag, you know.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
So her book, The Warmth of Other Suns,
SUNS.
SUNS,
Mm-hmm.
is a historical account of African Americans who migrated north and went, during the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
And it's full of little known facts about Black people who made their mark in history. So I know she wasn't the first woman to win a Pulitzer Prize.
No, that would be Edith Wharton.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But she was the first Black woman to win a Pulitzer Prize in journalism.
Mm-hmm.
And I have something from her book. Do you want
Okay.
to read it?
Please. No, you
Okay.
Go ahead.
Black mestizos were among the 44 Mexican settlers arriving in 1781 at the pueblo that would become Los Angeles. Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable, a fur trader born of an African slave woman in Haiti, built in 1779 the first permanent settlement in what is now known as Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Jan Rodriguez, a sailor of African descent working for and later abandoned by Dutch merchants on an untamed island in New York, created the first trading post on what is now known as Manhattan. And that was way back in 1613.
In 1613, what's now known as Manhattan. Okay. Wow. Now that's informative and it's educational.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great read. It'll take you a while, but The Warmth of Other Suns.
Yeah.
Please read it.
The Warmth of Other Suns,
written.
SUNS, and Dr. Isabel Wilkerson. Washington, D.C. native, you all, and Howard University graduate. Yes, a graduate of the Mecca. All right. Miss Gwen won't.
Thank you.
I'm bragging for her. I didn't graduate from there, but my sister did. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it for Kim. Kim, I'm doing it for you. Okay. All right. Now, some books are entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
But again, they can cross over into other
and
things.
be more than one
be
thing.
more than one
and be
thing.
more than. I mean, give us some examples of that.
Alice Walker,
Okay.
the first Black woman to win the Pulitzer Prize in fiction.
Okay.
And you know what she got it for.
Yeah. The color purple, my favorite color.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you'll pardon my language, I'm going to read you part of this.
Mm-hmm.
My, what do they call that? That corrects your grammar as you type.
Oh, yeah. Grammarly.
Tried to get me to change this to something else, but I'm going to read it just like she wrote it.
Oh, please. We don't want to get anything lost in the translation. Okay.
I think it pisses God off if you walk by the color purple in a field somewhere and don't notice it. People think pleasing God is all God cares about, but any fool living in the world can see it, always trying to please us back.
Wow. I remember that in the movie. Yeah. And that language there is, sometimes people just use certain language just to use it.
Mm-hmm.
This, however, is not that. It's not just being just there to be, shocking. It really captures. Yeah, it's there for, she did. Now, this book caused a lot of controversy. Mm-hmm. And of course, it was turned into a movie. And which was even more controversial, I do believe, than the book, because most people don't read the book; they see the movie. Let's just be real. If you ask somebody, "Did you read the book?" No, but I saw the movie. Okay, usually some significant departure because it needs to be entertaining and sellable. Okay, But I remember so well the controversy about it being an attack on Black men and so forth. And
But who like you
you
said,
know,
who doesn't know a mister?
well, I can name a few. I can name a few misters. Okay, yeah, old and young. We still have some misters. Okay, right. I don't have to leave the District of Columbia. We have them right there. Okay, so yeah. So when we read literature, when we receive it, uh, we're supposed to take it in. Is it informative? Is it all these things you just talked about? Does it educate? Does it provoke thought? So when we look at it that way, then the writer has accomplished his or her purpose. In this case, her purpose, to provoke thought. And then we have to remember that these writers are coming from sometimes experience.
Right, they're sharing their
They're
experience.
sharing experiences.
Think about Terry McMillan.
Oh Lord. Exhale.
Yeah, waiting to exhale.
Mm-hmm.
Her first novel was called Mama,
Mm-hmm.
and because she couldn't get anybody to publish it up to how she wanted to be distributed, she promoted it herself.
She self-published.
And
Mm-hmm.
promoted herself, and the
Mhm.
first printing sold out when she took charge of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Of course, Waiting to Exhale sold more than 3 million copies in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have been made into films. And a female screenwriter, Gina Marie Prince Bythewood,
Mm-hmm.
was able to direct 2 of her films,
Okay.
A Day Late and a Dollar Short and Disappearing Acts.
I remember.
So because she was a writer, it gave rise to opportunity for somebody else
to be a storyteller in a different way, to bring it to life,
Right.
in another way.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, we remember Waiting to Exhale. I mean, it sold more than 3 million copies within 3 years.
Mhm.
That's
a lot of books.
A lot of books, And that movie reminded us, introduced to some, reminded some of the rest of us of the great acting skills of
Lots of Black.
Loretta Devine, Angela Davis, and not Angela Bassett. I'm sorry, jumping ahead in my head. Angela Bassett and Leela Rochon, in particular, and of course Whitney Houston was also in the movie. But that ensemble was incredible, and of course Gregory Hines was in that movie. And I think some people got a glimpse into the skills of I'm thinking of the young man. Wesley Snipes made a cameo appearance in that movie, and Michael Beach was in the movie, and then Wendell Pierce from Louisiana. It was an incredible ensemble in that movie, and so that gave her writing created opportunities for others in another area of communication and storytelling. Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking of what was that other how Stella
Lost her, got her
groove back. Yeah,
that was pretty funny.
That was yeah. And sad at the same time, yeah.
But it motivated some women
to do some things. Yeah. That's why Miss Donna's here. I'm trying to get my groove back. I'm trying to get my groove back. Who starts doing television and radio at my age? I'm getting my groove back. That's why. Okay. But and yet you go back to educate and inform, and I see you have several people here from different periods.
Yeah, Zora Neale Hurston.
Oh yeah.
Now, when she was writing, prolifically, she was just unrecognized.
Mm-hmm.
And Alice Walker comes along and gets her back in the spotlight after her death. She was not even living anymore.
That's right.
But Alice Walker wrote a magazine article about Zora Neale Hurston and brought her back to the public's attention. Now, her most famous work was perhaps Their Eyes Were Watching God.
Watching God, yeah.
And it was because Alice Walker was not selfish that she was willing to lift up another author, another woman author.
Mm-hmm.
A nonfiction work was discovered in my lifetime and published after her death. It's called Barracoon, The Story of the Last Black Cargo. Hurston was an anthropologist as well as a writer.
That's right.
And she conducted interviews of Cujo Lewis, who was a survivor of the slave ship Cotilla. And he was enslaved 50 years after the slave trade had been outlawed in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And he remained enslaved until after the Civil War. And because she was an anthropologist, she was able to bring his story to life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember when you bring up the fact that she was a learned anthropologist, she did a lot of work in that Gullah area in South Carolina, in those islands where the people speak the language very closely related to the African language and so forth. And she did a documentary, and I can't think of the name of the documentary. Every now and then, Turner Classics plays it. And you're reminded of her other hat, that she could wear. The other work, as a real anthropologist, which no doubt gave a depth to her writing others did not have. And it probably at the time she was doing it was not understood and appreciated. Yeah. So, she, and look, and I can't remember, Gwen, I'm so sorry. Something is happening right now with her works, and I don't know exactly where it is. I think it's somewhere here in the New York, Washington corridor, or maybe it's going up and down, right now. We can find out.
And you guys can find out also. Look up Zora Neale Hurston.
There's something going on with her works right now. And I think because February and March, run together. She comes up in Black History Month, and then she comes up again in Women's History Month. She has for the past few years, and I'm really glad about it because for so long she was ignored, or people forgot about her work.
She was dead before.
Yeah. So, she has quite a story. There are some nuances in her personal life that add that richness to her story. I was trying to think. I think in Their Eyes Were Watching God. I think Halle Berry played in that.
That was a movie too?
Yeah.
Okay. You would know about all that stuff.
Well, no, not all of it. I believe that she did, or she was trying to get it done, but I believe they did do it or attempted to do it. I don't know if it was a TV movie, sometimes when it's just a TV movie or something. Yeah. But she was quite prolific. Anybody else you want to talk about?
Do you want me to read something from hers?
Yeah,
could you?
Please.
Okay, this is from Barracoon. With these things already known to me, I once more sought the ancient house of the man called Cujo, the singular man who says of himself, Edem eti, ucum edem ete upar, the tree of two woods, literally two trees that have grown together, one part ucum, mahogany, and one part upar, ebony. He means to say, partly a free man, partly free. The only man on earth who has in his heart the memory of his African home, the horrors of a slave raid, the barracoon, the Lenten tones of slavery, and who has 67 years of freedom in a foreign land behind him.
Wow. Ooh. Mm.
She interviewed him, if you get a chance to read.
Yeah. She interviewed him, and I'm not sure, some of her interviews were recorded.
I don't know if this.
I don't know if this is one of them or not.
Yeah, I don't think
but
so.
some of them were recorded. I don't know where they're being archived, but some were on recordings. Yes.
Then,
Wow.
Playwright Pearl Clegg, her parents were activists, and instead of reading her fairy tales when she was little, they used to read her Langston Hughes.
Oh dear.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
We can all get a lesson from that.
Yeah.
She started keeping journals at 11, and she continued to push herself and work various jobs, making a living until writing could sustain her. And now she is just doing what she loves. And she's a great speaker and just speaks all over, and great motivator as well.
Mm-hmm. So we have so many women who have made a mark in the field of storytelling.
Did I say that Pearl Clegg came from Howard University?
Oh, yeah, I think I'm rubbing off on you.
Okay.
I think I'm rubbing off. She's from the Mecca, Howard University. Yeah. And we have so many, look, let's don't forget Shonda Rhimes. Okay. Oh, yeah. She's a great writer, a great storyteller, and the medium most of us think about is television. Grey's Anatomy, Scandal. The Viola Davis was in How to Get Away with Murder. Okay. Now, Shonda Rhimes, I think at one time she had as many as 7 television shows on. I mean, just prolific. And here's the beautiful part. Most people didn't even know she was Black. Okay. Her stories, I mean, Grey's Anatomy could be Shonda. Well, they didn't know.
Shonda.
Yeah, but listen, I went to high school graduation in West Virginia, and you'll be surprised how many little white children have names like Shonda and stuff. Okay. I'm just saying, you couldn't tell. Okay. So, look, she is just so successful. And then we have Spike Lee's wife, Tanya Lewis. Yep. Angela Bassett, in her work, has been such a great storyteller as an actress, and not just as an actress. She's done some work behind the scenes, like help produce some things as well. See, some of these people like Taraji Henson and Angela Bassett, some of these people are learning to come from behind, the cameras. Yeah. And they're doing things behind the scenes. And let's face it, Angela Bassett is a great actress, but she's a great human being as well. I mean, anytime you can portray being that Black Panther series, and you can also be Tina Turner. I mean,
that's talent.
That's talent. Okay, that you can't fake that, folks. That's the real deal right there. Okay, and then I was thinking about closely related to that and bringing the stories to fruition. Bringing them into being. Ruth Carter just got her second Oscar for the costumes that she brought to life to help bring the story of Wakanda to life. Yeah. That and just getting one for costumes is something, but she got 2. Unprecedented. I mean, just incredible. She keeps on. She's gonna be up there with Edith Head now. Okay. Right. And then I was thinking of, we talked about Doris McMillan, but we've had a couple of other people in storytelling in the news, and that would be Connie Chung, Asian, Maureen Bunyan. And Maureen Bunyan was here locally. And Maureen was so incredibly talented. She was multilingual, number one, and she had an island background. And a lot of people don't know that. And then I would be remiss in saying goodbye to Pat Lawson Muse. She's leaving at the end of this month. She's leaving WRC after having a long career there, and she certainly has brought stories to us. She's been a remarkable storyteller. There are so many: Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer. We just can't tell it all. And of course, one of my favorites, Carol Simpson, who took the time to mentor other people in her work. So we've had a number of people bring storytelling in many different ways, in books, in movies, in television, just so many ways. And I'm grateful to them. But we've gone over a number of people. We've got Asian, white, Black, not sure. Women. We've had women. Okay. And there's a common denominator in that, because we are the mothers, we are the life givers, so to speak. We carry the children, and we are storytellers just by being women. I think there's an extra dimension to our storytelling. Now, that's not saying men can't do it, but you just can't do it like women. Okay, there you go. That's my little prejudice, and I'm right. So next week, we are going to do an encore presentation of women in non-traditional jobs. Okay, women in non-traditional jobs. We had a guest, Dr. Laverne Adams, and I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing about that again. Okay, I'm sure you'll enjoy that, get something, some more out of it that you didn't get the first time. And we will be endeavoring to lift up the Hope Fest event. So we won't be able to be with you live next week, but we trust that you will enjoy the encore presentation of women in non-traditional roles.
If you're not at Hope Fest.
If you're not at Hope Fest. And of course, you can always look at that at a later time, but we do want people who missed it to know they can get it at the regular time next week. Okay, thank you so much. And when we return in April, we will be talking about National Child Abuse Awareness Month. Okay, National Child Abuse Awareness Month, April, and the official color is blue. All right, we're going to talk about trauma. And we've talked a little bit about children going through challenging custody battles, challenging situations in the school systems. All that will come back up again as we talk about Child Abuse Awareness Month in April. Okay, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you the first week of April. Thank you.